Hello, everyone. This is October's ZRX Ecosystem Developer and Governance meeting. Thanks for actually being patient. Last week we had a little problem, so we had to postpone it. But yeah, here we are. As always, let's start with our agenda. Today, actually, most of the topics are going to be around ZRX API V1 launch and performance report. Fulvia is going to walk us through a report that you probably have seen circulating last week about ZRX API and the performance that come with it. Then there are a few other miscellaneous updates around V4, Mesh V10, and a reminder of, for those that are tuning in especially, or they're pretty new to the ZRX world, a sort of a walkthrough of how you can get involved and help the project, and then a few updates from the ecosystem. But as always, as we've done in the last few months, let's start from a roadmap perspective of the project. There are a few stars here. The most important changes since last meeting are around the protocol side. We have started working on the settlement import into the exchange proxy, and we'll spend some more time walking you through what we're thinking about in terms of scheduling and the next steps from that perspective. On the ZRX API side, we actually launched, as we'll hear from Fulvia, new features on the V1 endpoints. We're obviously making progress on the liquidity sources maintenance side of the house. We just added lately Swerve and Dodo, and also improvements around the meta transactions that now are really close to be pointing at the exchange proxy. We have an update on the Mesh GraphQL APIs. There's a new version out there, and then a few other updates that basically concern the broader ecosystem, so outside of ZRX Labs, and we'll spend more time on those as we go through the agenda. And with that, I'll leave the floor to Fulvia.
All right, so last week was a pretty big week for the ZRX API. We launched V1, which is a major improvement over the version we launched in January in terms of gas usage, efficiency, and a whole bunch of new features that were not available in V0. So it was a very big milestone for us. And we also released a report on performance where we compared basically the performance on various fronts, but primarily on quoted prices, adjusted prices, gas usage, reverts, and response times across 5 different DEX and DEX aggregators, including ZRX API, 1inch, DEX-AG, Paraswap, and Uniswap. So I'm going to be walking you through some of the highlights, but if you haven't read the full report yet, I really recommend going through it. It has a lot more detail. There's a lot of things that I'm not covering in this presentation to keep it short and sweet, but highly recommend going through the full report. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to us through Discord or through our shared channels. Okay, so I wanted to start with quoted and adjusted prices. The reason, or one of like the big focus areas for us when building ZRX API V1 was to offer the best prices after accounting for transaction costs. These are basically adjusted prices, basically settled price is what the user ultimately gets once the transaction costs are paid. And it can be calculated with a very simple formula, dividing the amount sold by the amount bought minus costs. To give you some examples, let's say that you want to trade 100 DAI for USDC, and you go to one aggregator, and this aggregator quotes you 100 USDC with a transaction cost of $5. This ultimately results in an adjusted price of 1.05. If you go to a second aggregator, that aggregator might actually quote you more USDC for your 100 DAI. So let's say it quotes you 104 USDC for those 100 DAI, but the transaction cost is higher, giving you like approximately a $10 transaction cost. And in that case, the adjusted price is actually a little bit higher than the first option. So one thing that we have noticed, and we often receive feedback around this, is that many users are confused as to why like another aggregator or other dexes can offer you a better quoted price, but they are not taking into account transaction costs, and we think it's very important because that's what they ultimately get. So in this case, aggregator 2 turns out to be actually a little bit more expensive than aggregator 1, even though they quoted a better rate and bought more tokens. So with that said, we've noticed that, and one thing that we realized, we've seen a lot of screenshots flying around Twitter of people asking why, better quotes, or like assuming that better quotes always lead to better realized prices or adjusted prices. So we decided to actually take it a step ahead, and we wanted to compare performance. So we did a simulation. We developed our simulation tool that basically we ran a study with over 60,000 trades across the top 20 DEX pairs by volume. And what I'm going to show you next, and what we talk about in the report, are the results of that simulation. Okay, so one of the first things that we took a look at in the simulation results was quoted versus adjusted prices. And the thing that it became quite clear to us is that most aggregators were or seem to be optimizing to win quoted prices in order to attract users. But often they fail at delivering these best adjusted prices. So a few things that you can see in these charts is, for example, 1inch, which often wins in quoted prices, actually reduce their winning rate when we're looking at adjusted prices. Same for DEX.AG, which are the orange colored bars. And in fact, if you look at ZRX API and slash Matcha, we don't win that often in quoted prices, but we end up winning more often in adjusted prices. And this is a trade-off that we made intentionally because we optimize for adjusted prices and we account for gas in our smart order routing logic. But the end result of that, and how we're able to achieve this goal of us, is that the API offers the best adjusted prices 7 out of 10 times. So about 72% of the time on average from these 60,000 trades that we simulated, ZRX API offered or outperformed the other aggregators. So yeah, one key takeaway at this from these graphs is that the best quoted price doesn't always result in the best adjusted prices, which is something that we wanted to confirm with this simulation. So to achieve this, we put a ton of effort in delivering market-leading gas efficiency in B1. So you can see that in B1, we cut down transaction costs around 76% versus B0 by making ZRX API very efficient in terms of gas usage. And you can see from the graph on the right that all other aggregators are at least double the cost of ZRX API, which means it is double the cost for a user of these or any interface built on these aggregators with little additional value extracted. So to put things in perspective, I pull up some numbers from our simulation that shows what the average cost in dollar value of all simulated trades between $500 and $1,000 were across these different DEXs. And you can see that Uniswap and ZRX API have the lowest, but everyone else, gas usage is actually pretty high. So Uniswap, and I want to dive deep a little bit more into this. So Uniswap is one of the cheapest exchanges in terms of gas usage. So it's been a goal of ours, and I think it's something that all aggregators should aspire to. But especially like to have these very low gas usage, especially in the lower value buckets, because it is extremely unlikely that a small trade, say $100 to $500, is actually going to be split over multiple exchanges, even when gas prices are very low, because it doesn't make a lot of sense given the gas cost of splitting a trade. So we think that every aggregator should aspire to get as close as possible to Uniswap. And this is something that we were specifically working towards. So on average, ZRX API has increased cost over Uniswap, but yet the ZRX API offers better adjusted prices than Uniswap 7 out of 10 times. So how is this possible? You might be wondering if you haven't read the report. One of the things that we are most proud of that we accomplished in ZRX API v1 is that we built a super optimized contract that actually allows us to source liquidity from Uniswap cheap in a more gas efficient or in a cheaper way than it actually is to go directly to Uniswap. So here I'm showing you two examples of a similar trade. The first one, the one on the left, is a ETH unit trade made by going directly to the Uniswap interface, and you can see that the cost of that transaction was approximately 114,000 gas. On the right, we have a similar transaction. It's also a ETH unit trade, similar amounts. But this second transaction, the one on the right, was done through the API or accessing liquidity, Uniswap's liquidity, but through the API. And you can see that the gas used by this transaction was actually quite lower, 3.7% lower, and it was around 110K gas. This is one of the biggest differences versus ZRX API v0, and it's one of the things that we were really excited about because it allows us to offer for trades that are 100% routed to Uniswap, actually a cheaper trade than if users were to go directly to Uniswap. I can stop here. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right. I'll keep going then. So another important metric that we look at in terms of comparing performance, and also throughout the report, we deep dive into it, is reverts. So when a user, basically reverts allow us to answer the question of what is the likelihood of a transaction failing when a user makes a trade through one of these exchanges. And we think that aggregators should aim to keep reverts as low as possible. I think we all had at least one transaction that failed in our lifetime using Ethereum, and it sucks paying for a transaction that failed, especially when gas prices are, over the roof as they have been lately. So we look at reverts really closely. There's a few explanations for why reverts can happen in a simulated environment, but basically one thing to note here is that in the simulation, there is no reverts introduced by human behavior. We use fully funded wallets and transactions, so usually or generally reverts in a simulated environment are lower than reverts in real life. And we will talk about those in a bit as well. But two possible explanations of why reverts can be or can happen in this simulated environment is one, because the price quoted is gone. So this is particularly visible in the higher delay buckets. So for example, if a transaction is delayed for a minute or a minute and a half, and the transaction reverts, it's possible that the price quoted has disappeared, is no longer available. And then the second reason is that the price never existed. This is typically more visible in the lower delay buckets. And for example, the 0 to 10 seconds delay bucket is an interesting bucket to look at, because it basically means that from when the transaction was submitted on chain versus when it was tried to confirm, it was 10 seconds, basically immediately. And if a transaction fails in that range, it means that it is likely that the price actually never existed, or there that could be like the most likely explanation for reverts in that bucket. So we left Uniswap here to keep consistency across the report, but if we look at all the aggregators, Matcha and ZRX API have the lowest revert rates, and this is confirmed by the information that we can obtain through the on-chain transactions. So as I mentioned earlier, on-chain reverts are generally higher than simulated reverts because we are actually on-chain. There's many things that can happen that are not perfect conditions as we have in the simulated environment. But what we can see here is that the revert rates generally are higher for everyone, but they kind of confirm or they confirm what we see in the simulation in terms of like who has higher revert rates, who has the lowest revert rates. So you can see that historically, Matcha has had around between 5 and 6% of revert rates. Lately, has been much lower. And then Uniswap has really high revert rates on chain, which the difference between on-chain reverts and simulated reverts can also speak to a big opportunity there to improving UX and things like that to prevent human error induced revert rates, but we'll leave that for a separate discussion. And then last but not least, so far we've covered accuracy, gas usage, and reverts. But since ZRX API serves teams that are building products on top of it, for us, response times is really important. I mean, we are builders ourselves, and we know that when you're building a product on top of a third-party infrastructure, you need the service to be as reliable and as fast as possible in order, to build a good user experience and to just have a reliable product to offer to your users. So response times is like the last of the metrics that we follow closely. It is a technical challenge to maintain low response times when we keep adding or like new liquidity sources and sampling from more than 13 liquidity sources, including RFQ, which has its own complexities because we need to ask the market makers to provide us a quote. Is a little bit different from on-chain automated market makers. So it is a challenge, but we've been really focused on optimizing for response times as well, and we are consistently below 1.5 seconds, which is about 2.7 times faster than other aggregators. This is important to note, especially for those teams that are looking to build on top of an aggregator or sourcing liquidity through an aggregator. As I mentioned, it is important in order to maintain your UX and your general product performance. So this is all for me in terms of the report and the V1 launch. I really encourage you to look at the report. If you haven't, there's a lot more information there. A few things worth highlighting that are also new in V1 is, for example, support for affiliate fees, which it's been a highly requested feature. So now integrators of the API can use the affiliate fees field in order to add a fee on top and collect that as revenue. Other important things that came up in or that are different in V1 is that we have multi-hub, which we presented in previous ecosystem developer meetings, but basically it allows us to bridge liquidity to illiquid markets. It's a very interesting way of bridging liquidity to illiquid markets. So that's also different in V1. And then, of course, we have more liquidity sources. And more recently, we added Dodo this week, and we're adding Cream as well. So yeah, those are some of the highlights of V1 that are not included here. But yeah, highly recommend going through the full report. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out on Discord if they don't come up immediately in this meeting.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, I think the thing that we want everybody to remember is pretty much this guy here, all this green. I think it's like, personally speaking, it's like the strongest message I think there is to send out there, apart from all the other goodness. But yeah, it's pretty impressive to see that basically in this all this area, basically Matcha and ZRX API are basically, provide the best value to the user. So I think it's a very strong messaging here.
Yep.
If anyone has any questions, like this is the most important part of the meeting, I think, anyway. So if you can ask, if you want to ask more questions later, that's, we're here to answer any. Now let's move to other topics. Just wanted to touch on the road to V4. We are utilizing basically the current version of ZRX is ZRX P3, but as we've been saying in the last few months, basically ZRX API and Matcha are de facto experimenting with the beta of V4. Basically, by creating this exchange proxy, we were able to test new features and optimize greatly the pipeline of smart contracts. And the results are, I mean, we just seen the results in the report. But this is still not being called V4. De facto, actually, it looks pretty much like a trusted extension that we added that still connects to V3 for limit orders and RFQ actually orders. So yeah, swap V1 endpoints actually are pointing at exchange proxy, this V4 beta. And one of the outcomes of that actually is the fact that unfortunately, RFQ liquidity and open order book liquidity are actually a little bit handicapped versus other on-chain liquidity sources because they have this extra gas overhead. And one of the most concrete thing that we want to do, obviously, to move towards a final scenario where this becomes the ZRX V4 protocol, is to take the settlement logic that exists in V3 and bring it to the exchange proxy. Here we're basically on the top, we are highlighting almost all the steps and the milestones that need to happen to basically update all the elements of the stack in order to have the final governance vote around V4. And we're pretty much in the milestone 3 type of the milestone 3 phase right now. We are actually speccing the import of the settlement, and we are seeing how to port over the protocol fee function that I connected to this new settlement function in Exchange Proxy. And this whole process is going to last approximately 2-3 months. And as a next steps, we should expect basically ZRX Labs to work out these optimizations of the settlement. And we will actually deploy them in the exchange proxy before the official V4 vote, in the same spirit as we've been basically experimenting with the exchange proxy. So we won't have to wait these 3 months to actually give Matcha and ZRX API integrators users the ability to benefit from those improvements. That will require an intermediate vote to register this function to the staking proxy. And that we expect that vote to happen probably in the next, in around 4 to 6 weeks. So in the next governance call, we will likely have a call to action around that. You should expect a draft zip around the V4 migration and contracts over the next couple of weeks. We are finalizing the early specs that we're getting to a point where we're ready to share something. And but then to reiterate, the final V4 community vote will be done once we also have updated the entirety of the tooling, ZRX API and mesh. We will actually obviously undergo an external audit. We are currently targeting December. We booked consensus diligence again to work on this. And the current ATA to complete all these basically work streams is January 2021. But again, as we've been doing in the last few months, we will experiment and actually launch these changes live as we complete them and test them directly with the Matcha and ZRX API users. So we won't wait until then. And then the vote is going to be mostly around signaling that is the official, basically, ZRX protocol. Something that we actually, there's nothing written here, but we're pretty much we're really excited about this release actually, because as we've seen, as experienced in the last few months, the exchange proxy will let us basically say goodbye to the monolithic updates that we've been doing in the last few years. With Exchange Proxy, we'll be able to basically surgically add new features and have votes on one specific function every time we want to add them, or even add transformers without having to have a vote around that. So that will make the protocol much more powerful. And in addition to that, it's going to be the most efficient protocol we had for limit orders and RFQ. So we are aggressively actually pointing at optimizations of gas for also RFQ and limit orders. And we believe that the appetite for limit orders is starting to show again. And in a realm where AMM liquidity is the lion's share of the liquidity out there, and likely so because it helped the DEX system to grow as we are experiencing. We believe that the limit orders are a paramount element of what the liquidity is going to look like over the next few years. So we're pretty excited about this new release. But yeah, I expect to hear about that in the next ecosystem meeting and actually over the next 3 months with an updated timelines. Questions around this? No? Okay. PSA, we launched Mesh v10.1. Last week, we were ready to announce 10.0, but actually we added a new feature already to the Mesh v10. But as you recall, we've been talking about this over the last 5 months, I think. We've been working on a refactor of the DB of the mesh nodes, and finally this is available. So we encourage all the mesh node operators to update. This is a big release that really introduces a lot of improvements in the stability and performance of the order sync protocol, and generally speaking, a better queryability for your use cases. You won't have only the option to port over all the orders and then filter them out, but now you have a GraphQL API embedded in the standalone and browser nodes. So please update. This is not a network breaking change, but so still your nodes are functioning in the network, but obviously there are a lot of good reasons why to move. The JSON RPC APIs are no longer supported because they are being basically replaced by these new GraphQL APIs. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them now, or just go to Discord in the Mesh help channel, and we'd be happy to help you out updating. Okay, now, as we said at the beginning, we felt it's probably a good idea especially for those that are pretty new to the ecosystem, or as a general refresher, to walk you through all the resources we have available, and also especially try to answer the question that you might have: how can I help? Actually, I really like this project, and what should I do? And we divided the ZRX ecosystem world into 4 categories: enthusiast, ZRX token holder, developer, and market maker. Historically, we've been mostly focused on the developer side, but we felt like maybe as more people are watching this video, these recordings, it's useful to reiterate what you can do as a pure enthusiast. And let's start from the left. And in terms of learning, I think it's obviously good to acquaint yourself with what ZRX is. So there's no better place than going to zrx.org to learn more about what ZRX is and what the basic properties of the protocol and the technology stacks are. And then obviously follow all of our social media accounts and the Reddit channels, subscribe to our YouTube channels, etc. And also help us out making some noise, to be honest. Like there's no better way to support the team than retweeting, for example, what we shared last week around the ZRX API performance reports. Really, that goes a long way to building more mind share about the protocol and about our technology. So yeah, if there's one thing that maybe it's not really, doesn't take much of an effort, that would be very impactful. If you want to participate more actively, there are obviously general chats all over Telegram, around Matcha, directly in Telegram. Discord has plenty of channels out there. So this slide will have all the links. So hopefully you'll be able to basically access them quite easily. If you want to create more awareness, obviously, as I said before, they're just one click away. Like, tweets, comments are super appreciated. And obviously help us out also correcting any misinformation that we find around, maybe shared by other people or even by us. Sometimes, on documentation, maybe we miss a few things as we update new things. So feel free to reach out to Brent, who's our community manager, and is super helpful there, directing the request to the right people also internally. Now, if you want to, as an enthusiast or ZRX token holder, maybe you're not a developer, but it doesn't matter. What's the best way to support us? Well, trading on Matcha is the best way ever in terms of helping out our ecosystem thrive. If you are ZRX token holders, go to ZRX Portal and basically stake with one of the staking pools active in the ecosystem. And if you want to go one step beyond that and help governing the ZRX ecosystem, obviously, if you're not a token holder, buy some ZRX. So basically, you will become de facto a token holder, and you'll be able to vote on the proposals. And but if you are already a ZRX token holder, you can basically vote on zips and create improvement proposals on the forum, and obviously subscribe to these developer and governance meetings. This is very helpful if we can grow the participations live here or even over our YouTube recordings. Now, moving to the bottom side of the house, which is the one that we usually target more directly. Obviously, if you are a developer that is approaching the decentralized exchange ecosystem and you're interested in ZeroX, there's no better way to start from our docs. The core concept page is a good comprehensive way of how ZeroX works and how is it different from other DEX protocols. Once you're ready to participate and read and hear more from the community, join our developer chats. There are a few technical chats out there that are very informative. Obviously, join our repositories over GitHub. If you are a market maker, it's maybe helpful to start from a similar entry point, but there are also more specific guides in the docs that are linked on the bottom left. So market making on ZeroX. And once you're ready to build, if you are basically a developer building a DEX interface, well, there's no better place to start than playing around with the swap APIs. That basically it's the toolkit that we built to make it easier for developers to access liquidity and settle on ZeroX. So you will have the swap, the meta transactions APIs. If you want to participate to the open order book network, run a mesh node. There are guides there that should be pretty straightforward. And obviously also apply to bounties that we have recently started doing. If you want to help us basically growing our technology stack. If you are a market maker, you obviously care about different things, and you are interested in looking at basically our RFQT resources. We recently basically added new ways for you to provide liquidity on an RFQ capacity. You can still use open order book, obviously. And one thing that you might want to do before even digging deeper on that is to check the taker flow, which is growing quite a lot. You can check it on zeroxtracker.com. And lately the volumes have increased quite significantly. So it's something that if you're a market maker, you're probably going to start from there. So we ask you to check it out. And once you start providing liquidity on ZeroX, obviously open a staking pool and start collecting liquidity rewards. On the governance side, once you've started building on top of the ZRX stack, obviously it becomes more important for you that the protocol works at your advantage. So propose improvements to the protocol, read and be on top of what is going on in the ZIPs proposals. Come to these meetings to raise your concerns or ask your questions around the direction of the protocol. So yeah, this is a good resource for different types of people that are tuning in and that are participating in the ecosystem. Feel free to refer to this and to pass it around if you notice there are other people that are interested. All right. Now a couple of updates from the ecosystem. So now we've been basically mostly providing you updates from ZRX Labs, but there's a lot of going on also by other folks in the ecosystem. I believe we've touched on this a few times now. We opened a bounty to update the wallet management in ZRX Portal. And the good news is that we are making good progress here. And I actually wanted to walk you through a quick demo if it works. So basically the purpose of this update was to add Wallet Connect to ZRX Portal. So to give, for example, Trust Wallet users a way to connect now that in the iOS app, there's not the browser in-app anymore. So I'm going to walk you through a dog food version of the PR. This is not in production yet. We're fixing the last bugs. But basically, we added this new way of connecting to ZRX Portal. I'm in my IAM token app right now, so I can simply scan the QR code and suddenly it should ask me, do I allow? Yes, I allow. Okay, we're connected. So this is working. So I could have used the Trust Wallet here. And I actually tested the staking, I think a week ago. So yeah, you can see that I'm currently staked. I have one ZRX staked here, but we use this new interface and hopefully we'll be able to fix the last bugs soon. So we'll be able to launch this. This is also obviously available on, well, you probably don't see my screen much. Let's see if I stop presenting, maybe I'm able to show you a little bit bigger, but also on mobile. Let me actually, if I try and connect from mobile, we will have the Wallet Connect pop-up, so I can connect to all these other services. So also on mobile, this flow works. So hopefully by next governance call, we will have this live in production. Back to the updates. There's another one. This was recently announced. Another bounty that we opened is around Instant. Instant is one of the very first products that were launched on top of ZRX, a web widget that can be embedded in any website and allows for a token swap. And we, as ZRX Labs, we couldn't really maintain that package and product anymore, but we asked the community if there was anyone ready to become the new maintainer and owner, and Joao stepped up, and obviously Joao is a usual suspect in the world of a ZRX ecosystem. He's been with us for a long time. He knows the stack, he knows the products. So we're really excited that he stepped up and volunteered to work on this. So yeah, the next steps, as Joao knows, is on ZRX Lab side to take Instant out of the mono repo and create a separate repo so you can get started there. I think Joao is on the call, but I'm not sure if you want to add anything, Joao, to this or no. Okay. All right. I think that's all for today. As always, I originally thought that it would be a shorter agenda, but it's been 40 minutes plus. And Yeah, we started introducing this section in the last few calls. We want to make sure, as part of the Q&A, that you know that this is also a forum to discuss very generic things about ZRX. It doesn't need to be necessarily about the technology stack, but it could be also around governance or how we're thinking about the token economics or other stuff. So this call is meant to be not only ZRX Labs giving you an update on what we've been working on, but really is about the community and trying to build together a future of the protocol. So with that in mind, questions or proposals, or any open feedback you might have is greatly appreciated. Yeah, I think no questions. Good. Okay, so
I don't think we have any questions today, but thanks for all the updates. Really appreciate what you guys are doing with the ZRX API there.
Nice. Thanks, Whitney. All right. No questions. If there are no questions, I'd say see you next month. And for those especially that are watching, make sure you follow this repository to know exactly the time and watch read the slides that we just showed, or have the links to the recording of this call or also the previous ones. And see you next month.